I'm Claire Thompson, 31, and I never imagined my own family would abandon me and my 9-year-old daughter Lily to die in the Colorado wilderness. What started as a simple family camping weekend turned into a living nightmare. We'd gone on a short hike to see the sunset over Bear Ridge Falls, just a 45-minute loop, but when we came back to the clearing, everything was gone. The tents, the vehicles, the people. All that remained was a folded scrap of paper weighed down with a rock. 4 words burned into my mind. "This is for the best." Lily clutched my hand, eyes wide with fear. "Mom, where is everyone?" My chest tightened as I stared into the empty clearing. That was the moment it hit me. My family had left us here, alone, on purpose. Before I explain how Lily and I survived and how I made sure they'd never forget what they did, drop a comment and subscribe. This isn't just a survival story. It's a story of betrayal and reckoning. Tension between me and my family had been brewing for years. My parents, Charles and Evelyn Thompson, ran a legal practice in Denver and expected their children to follow in their footsteps. Orderly, successful, presentable. My younger brother Andrew was their pride. Law degree from Stanford, married to a pediatrician, lives in a gated community with 2 honor roll sons and a golden retriever. He played the role perfectly. Then there was me, who chose photography over law, art school over Ivy League, independence over approval. At 22, I married Jace, a wildlife filmmaker I met in New Mexico. My parents never approved. "He doesn't have a real career," my father muttered one Thanksgiving. When Lily was born, they pretended to come around. Pretended. But the disapproval lived in every smile that didn't reach their eyes. Then, 3 years ago, Jace died in a climbing accident in Alaska. My world shattered. I moved back to Colorado, hoping my family might finally offer support. Instead, I got silence, politeness, pity. A year ago, I was offered a lead creative role with a conservation organization in Oregon. My dream job. More money. A better life for Lily. But when I told my family about the move, Evelyn's smile vanished. "You can't just take Lily away. She belongs here, with family." When I refused to give up the opportunity, things grew cold. Then came the sudden camping invite, one last weekend together, before you leave. I wanted to believe it was genuine, that maybe, finally, they accepted me for who I was. But instead, they led us into the forest and vanished. They underestimated me. They underestimated Lily. We survived 6 days in the wild with nothing but instinct and grit. And when the rangers found us, sunburnt, dehydrated, furious, I didn't just tell them what happened. I pressed charges. Because families don't leave you behind. They don't steal your child's future out of jealousy. And they don't get away with betrayal. Not anymore. They weren't close. Not really. We only saw Andrew's family during holidays. Forced, uncomfortable gatherings where his son, Caleb, stayed glued to a tablet while Lily hovered nearby, trying to get his attention with no luck. "You're being selfish, Claire." "As usual," my father snapped during one argument. "Running away won't fix your mess." I stood firm. This isn't about running. It's about giving Lily a real shot at a better life. The arguments dragged on for weeks. Andrew and his wife Michelle added their voices, pressing guilt like bricks on my chest. "You'll tear this family apart," Michelle had said more than once. Then came a surprise. My father called late one night, his tone unusually soft. "Your mother and I think we should spend some time together before you move. One last weekend. All of us. It'll mean a lot to Lily, too." He suggested a camping trip. Blackwood Forest. Remote. Quiet. "Just like the ones we used to do," he said. "Andrew and Caleb will come too. We'll take care of all the planning." I was hesitant, but hopeful. "Lily would love that," I said cautiously. "Okay." Looking back now, the signs were everywhere. The hushed conversations between Dad and Andrew that ended when I walked into the room. Mom's cryptic remark, "Some lessons are only learned the hard way." After dinner one night, and Andrew's oddly specific questions about my outdoor skills, how well I could swim, whether I'd ever used a compass, if I knew how to filter water. But I ignored it all. I wanted peace, closure. I wanted Lily to have good memories before the move. She's so excited, I told my mom as we packed. She keeps saying Uncle Andrew's going to teach her to fish. Oh, and Grandpa said we'll see a waterfall. Lily beamed, tossing her little flashlight into her backpack. The drive to Blackwood took nearly 3 hours. The final stretch was nothing but narrow, winding dirt roads. No cell signal, no traffic, just pine, rock, and endless quiet. When we pulled into the clearing by the lake, it struck me how far off-grid we were. No other campers, no signs of civilization. "It's perfect," my father said, exhaling like he owned the mountain. "No distractions. Just family." That first day felt fine. A little stiff, a little strange. My mom kept sighing about how Lily was going to miss her cousins in Colorado Springs. Andrew said almost nothing to me, focused on pitching tents and fiddling with gear. 3 tents, one for Mom and Dad, one for Andrew, Michelle, and Caleb, and one for me and Lily. That night around the fire, Lily and Caleb giggled over marshmallows while I sipped tea, trying to shake off the feeling I didn't belong. My father and Andrew exchanged a glance across the fire. Brief but chilling. Something in me stirred, but I smothered it. Told myself I was imagining things, that this was about healing. If only I had trusted my gut. I might have stopped what happened the next morning. The next morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight streaming through the tall pines. Breakfast was simple. Pancakes cooked over the campfire by Andrew while Caleb poked the flames with a stick. After we ate, Andrew suggested we all head down to the lake to do some fishing. I'd never been much for fishing, but I didn't want to seem standoffish. Maybe, just maybe, this trip really was about reconnecting. Lily was excited, skipping ahead with her rod in hand. To my surprise, Caleb actually warmed up to her. He showed her how to bait the hook, and they laughed when her first cast hit a bush. For a while, everything felt normal. The adults stood nearby, exchanging stiff conversation. Mom complained about the rocky ground. Michelle scrolled through photos on her phone, though there was no signal. My father, for once, kept his opinions to himself. Lily caught a small trout, no bigger than her forearm, and held it up like she'd won the lottery. Her grin made me forget, for a moment, that anything was wrong. Around noon, we headed back to camp with our modest haul. As I lagged a bit behind, my father came up beside me and gently placed a hand on my shoulder. A rare gesture. It startled me more than it comforted. "You know, Claire," he said softly, "there's a waterfall about an hour's hike from here. You should take Lily to see it after lunch." I glanced at him, uneasy. "That sounds nice. Will everyone be coming?" He shook his head quickly. No. Your mother's ankle is acting up. Andrew and I need to fix that tent pole. It snapped this morning. Caleb hates hiking." I looked over at Lily, who was already bouncing in anticipation. "Please, Mom, just us girls?" Before I could reply, Andrew stepped forward, pulling a small item from his jacket pocket. "Here," he said, handing it to Lily. "A compass, just in case." I frowned. "Isn't the trail clearly marked?" Andrew shrugged, smirking. "It's always smart to be prepared. You're not exactly an outdoors expert, Claire." I bristled, but held my tongue. Lily twirled the compass in her hand, fascinated by the shifting needle. After lunch, as we filled our water bottles and packed granola bars, I noticed Mom loading food back into the coolers. Not just leftovers, everything. She looked up as I watched her, visibly startled. "We don't want to attract bears," she mumbled, tightening the lids with shaky hands. We set off. The trail was clear, winding uphill through pine and birch. Birds chirped. The sun warmed our backs. Lily chatted about her new school in Oregon, how she wanted to join the nature club, how she hoped to make friends fast. But halfway up, she quieted. Then, hesitantly, "Mom?" I looked at her. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I heard Grandpa and Uncle Andrew talking last night, when I got up to use the bathroom." My stomach dropped. "What did they say?" "They said they were going to teach you a lesson. Grandpa said it's the only way you'll ever understand." She looked up at me, eyes wide and scared. A chill spread down my spine, but I smiled anyway. "Don't worry, baby. I've got you." "Oh, you know how Grandpa talks?" I said, brushing a loose strand of hair behind Lily's ear. He's probably still upset about the move. Don't worry about it, sweetie. Lily didn't look convinced, but she gave a small nod and kept walking. I should have listened. To her, to myself. But I didn't want to believe my own family would do anything truly harmful. The waterfall was stunning. A 60-foot ribbon of clear, rushing water dropped into a rocky basin, surrounded by mossy ledges and sunlit mist. We kicked off our shoes and dipped our toes into the freezing water, laughing and skipping stones. Lily gathered a few smooth pebbles and tucked them in her hoodie pocket, already planning which ones she'd display in her new bedroom in Oregon. For half an hour, the world was calm, normal. But as the sun began lowering behind the trees, an uneasy knot twisted in my stomach. Let's head back, I said, trying to mask the growing urgency in my voice. We made good time down the trail, but the unease grew with every step. When we emerged into the clearing where our campsite had been, I stopped so abruptly that Lily bumped into me. Everything was gone. The tents, the cars, the camping chairs, the coolers, the people, gone. Mom? Lily's voice was barely a whisper. Where is everyone? My brain scrambled for an explanation. Had we taken the wrong trail? But no. There was the ring of rocks from our fire pit, now filled with cold gray ash. The same moss-covered log we'd used for breakfast. This was our site, and it was empty. Hello? I called, my voice cracking. Dad? Andrew? Silence. Birdsong. Wind through the trees. Nothing else. My legs moved on autopilot toward the middle of the clearing, where something new sat. A small folding table, out of place among the natural landscape. On it lay a sealed plastic container and a sheet of paper pinned under a rock. My heart pounded as I unfolded the note. It was in my father's firm, familiar handwriting. This is for the best. Trust me. I stared at the words, rereading them, hoping they'd rearrange themselves into something that made sense. They didn't. With trembling hands, I opened the container. Inside, a compact two-person tent, a flashlight, a lighter, a tiny first aid kit, and a few energy bars, maybe enough food for 2 or 3 days. That was it. They had left us. On purpose. In the middle of nowhere. No vehicle, no phone, no signal, no help. Mom? Lily's voice cracked as she grabbed my arm. Mom? What's happening? Where did they go? I knelt down slowly and looked into her frightened eyes. But there was no answer I could give that wouldn't terrify her more. My family had abandoned us. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the clearing. We had maybe 3 hours of light left. No shelter up yet, no plan. Mom? Lily asked again, her voice small. Do you think... Are they coming back? I swallowed the lump in my throat and pulled her close. I don't think so, baby. But we're going to be okay. I only hoped that was true. I knelt in front of her, doing my best to sound steady despite the dread twisting in my chest. I'm not sure what's happening, sweetie, but we're going to be okay. First, let's figure out exactly what we've got. I unsnapped the plastic container and began laying everything out in the dirt. A small 2-person tent, a flashlight, thankfully with spare batteries, 1 lighter, a basic first aid kit, bandages, antiseptic wipes, some gauze, a tiny pot, 2 bottles of water, a half-empty box of granola bars, some beef jerky, a bag of trail mix, 2 apples. Not nothing, but definitely not enough. Lily picked up the compass Andrew had handed her that morning. At least we have this, she said, trying to sound hopeful. I smiled, touched by her resilience. That was smart of you to keep it safe. You're braver than you know. As the sun dipped lower behind the trees, we hurried to set up the tent. My hands shook. I'd never camped without Jace. He used to handle everything. Pitching the tent, building the fire, making it all seem so easy. Now, it was just me. After fumbling with the poles and rereading the printed instructions twice, we finally got the small dome upright. It looked fragile against the darkening forest. Lily tugged at my sleeve. Should we try to walk back? Maybe we can find the car? I paused, considering. No, honey, not tonight. It's getting dark, and we don't know which way to go. We drove on dirt roads for a long time. We could get more lost. What I didn't say was that we didn't even know how far we were from a real road. or whether anyone would be looking for us at all. After settling Lily inside the tent with one of the apples, I rummaged through my backpack again, desperate for anything useful. That's when I found it. A folded piece of paper tucked deep into a side pocket I knew had been empty when we left for the waterfall. My breath caught. I switched on the flashlight and unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable. Claire, this intervention is necessary. You've always run from accountability. Your choices, your failed marriage, your impulsive move. Taking Lily away from her family is just another selfish decision. A few days in the wilderness will help you see what truly matters. We'll return when we believe you've learned something. Evelyn. My mother. I crumpled the note in my fist, my vision blurring with tears. An intervention? They'd abandoned me. Abandoned Lily. In the wilderness. As if leaving us to struggle alone was some kind of life lesson. Rage surged up through the grief. I remembered my father scoffing when I changed my college major from business to fine arts, my mother frowning when I went to therapy after Jace died, instead of just praying it away. Andrew's smug advice that I should have tried harder to be a better wife. They'd never seen me. Not really. But they would now. This was the culmination of a lifetime of control and quiet manipulation, a final, desperate attempt to force me to conform. But this time, they hadn't just targeted me. They put my daughter in danger. From inside the tent, Lily's small voice broke the silence. Mom, are you crying? I quickly wiped my cheeks and crawled back inside. Just a little frustrated, sweetheart, but we're going to be okay. She was already bundled in her sleeping bag, clutching her worn, stuffed fox. Milo, the toy Jace had given her years ago. I was thankful she'd tucked it into her backpack for the hike. I'm scared, she whispered. I heard something. Maybe wolves? I slid into my own bag beside her and pulled her into my arms. Probably just coyotes, and they don't want anything to do with us. We're safe in the tent. Why did they leave us, Mom? Did we do something wrong? My heart cracked. Absolutely not, Lily. You didn't do anything wrong. I hesitated, then continued softly. This is complicated stuff between me and Grandpa and Grandma. It's not your fault. Not even a little. Is it because we're moving to Oregon? I nodded. Partly. But that still doesn't make what they did okay. What they did was wrong. Very wrong. Do you think they'll come back? I don't know, I admitted. But we're not going to sit around and wait. Tomorrow, we make a plan. She nodded and rested her head against me. Eventually, her breathing slowed into uneasy sleep. But I stayed awake. Every crackle from the woods made my pulse jump. A distant howl, the rustle of underbrush, the shifting of tree limbs in the wind that sometimes sounded too much like whispers. I lay still beside my daughter, wide-eyed and alert. My mind ran in circles. Should we try to hike out? But we didn't know which direction the road lay. Should we ration and wait? But for how long? Could I trust that my mother's note, saying they'd return, was sincere? Or just another cruel manipulation dressed up as tough love? And if they did come back, what then? One thing burned into clarity as the hours crawled by. Whatever relationship I had with my family, it was over. This wasn't discipline. This was cruelty. If we made it out, when we made it out, I would never let them near Lily again. I watched her sleep under the thin nylon roof and made a silent promise. I will get you out of here, no matter what it takes. Dawn arrived in a burst of birdsong that felt offensively cheerful for our situation. Lily was still asleep, peaceful in the golden morning light that filtered through the tent walls. I slipped outside, stiff from the cold and a night spent lying on packed dirt. The air was crisp, pine-scented, empty. In the clear light of morning, our abandonment looked even harsher. No tire tracks, no sign of return, just wilderness. We needed a real plan, and we needed to start now. When Lily awoke, I had already taken stock of our supplies and sketched out a plan in the small spiral notebook I'd luckily thrown into my backpack before the hike. I'd even drawn little checkboxes to make it feel more like a challenge than a crisis. Good morning, sweetie, I said gently, trying to keep the worry from my voice. Ready for an adventure? She rubbed her eyes and sat up. confused for a moment before her expression fell in quiet understanding. Do you think they came back while we were sleeping? I shook my head. No, honey, but we're going to be okay. We've got a plan now. I flipped open the notebook and showed her my scribbled list. 1. Secure water. 2. Maintain shelter. 3. Find, conserve food. 4. Signal for help. 5. Determine location, possible route out. We're treating this like a survival challenge, I explained, trying to infuse the moment with some of the excitement her dad used to bring to our camping trips. Just like those shows your dad loved to watch. Lily's eyes lit up just a little. Like Survival Masters? Can I be your partner? You are my survival partner, I said, smiling. And our first mission is water. I remembered a small stream we'd crossed on our hike to the waterfall. Maybe 15 minutes from the clearing. We packed our empty bottles, grabbed the compass Andrew had given Lily, and headed into the woods. As we walked, I tore strips from an old t-shirt and tied them to branches to mark our path. We found the stream exactly where I remembered it, clear and cold, gurgling over smooth rocks. Lily knelt and dipped her fingers in the water. It feels like ice, she giggled. It's running water, so that's a good sign, I said. But we'll still boil it to be safe. We filled the bottles and returned to camp. I gathered dry twigs, leaves, and pine needles to build a fire. It took longer than I expected. My hands were clumsy, and the wind kept stealing the spark. But finally, a small flame caught. I built it slowly, carefully, just like I remembered from the shows Jace loved. Lily watched me, wide-eyed. You're really good at this, Mom, I chuckled. Not really. I'm just remembering what I've seen on TV. But Dad's not here, she said simply. You are. Her words settled in my chest like a warm stone. I wasn't an expert, but I was all she had. And I wouldn't let her down. Once the water boiled, we let it cool and turned to food. We had enough granola bars, jerky, and trail mix for 3 days if we were careful. I remembered the wild berry bushes near the lake. Let's go foraging, I suggested. At the lake's edge, we found bushes heavy with small dark berries. I hesitated, unsure. Those are blueberries, Lily said, confident. We learned about them in science class. They're safe. I nodded slowly. Okay, survival partner. Let's gather what we can. I examined one of the berries closely. It did look like a blueberry. Plump, dusty blue, and just like the ones I remembered seeing Andrew casually picking the day before near the lake. We filled my bandana with as many as we could gather, tying the corners into a bundle. It was a decent supplement, but we'd need more. Our next challenge was the big one, trying to catch fish without a fishing pole, line, or bait. With no better ideas, I used my pocket knife to sharpen a stick into a crude spear and waded into the shallows. I spent nearly an hour jabbing clumsily at the glints of silver darting beneath the surface, succeeding only in soaking my jeans and nearly losing my balance more than once. Lily sat on the bank, chin on her knees. What if we made a trap instead? She suggested. Like a net or something. I paused, then nodded. That's actually a great idea. Using long branches, dry vines, and one of my spare shirts, we cobbled together a makeshift fish trap and wedged it in a narrow part of the stream. Lily added a few of our blueberries to the center, giggling as they floated like little bait balloons. The rest of the afternoon was spent fortifying our tent with heavier branches and gathering more dry wood before nightfall. I scouted a rocky outcrop just beyond the clearing, tall, solid, and curved enough to offer shelter if the weather turned ugly. I marked it mentally as our emergency backup. As evening settled in, we returned to the stream to check the trap. It was empty. Disappointing, but not surprising. We tweaked its position and decided to try again in the morning. That night, we ate half a granola bar each, a handful of blueberries, and a few pieces of jerky. Lily sat cross-legged by the fire, Milo tucked beside her, her cheeks rosy from wind and sun. This is kind of fun, she said suddenly, watching the flames flicker. It's like we're pioneers or something. I blinked, caught off guard. You're being so brave, Lily. She leaned into me. I'm not scared when I'm with you. Her faith shook something in me. I wanted to believe we could make it through this, but deep down, a voice kept whispering, what if you can't get her out? What if she pays for your family's cruelty? Day 3 brought its own tests. A cold rainstorm swept through mid-morning, soaking us completely and nearly putting out our fire. I managed to shield the embers with a slab of bark, saving just enough to rekindle the flames. But the tent wasn't so lucky. One side collapsed under the water's weight. As I tried to fix it, I stepped into a hidden hole and rolled my ankle hard. Pain shot up my leg, sharp and burning. I gasped and fell to one knee. "Mom!" Lily cried, rushing to my side. "Are you okay?" I couldn't lie. My face said it all. "I've twisted my ankle, sweetheart. I need to rest it." Without missing a beat, Lily helped me over to a fallen log, fetched our water bottle, and began gathering firewood on her own. "You don't have to do that," I started to say. "Yes, I do," she replied softly. "You took care of me. Now it's my turn." She cut me off gently but firmly. "We're survival partners. Remember? When one person gets hurt, the other person helps." Pride and heartbreak surged in my chest. No child should have to carry the weight Lily was now bearing. Yet here she was, gathering firewood, checking our fish trap, still empty, and even trying to fix the sagging edge of the tent with twine and twigs. That evening, I sat with my swollen ankle propped on my backpack, sharp pulses of pain throbbing up my leg. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, a dull ache that had become constant. I watched Lily eat a few sparse blueberries, trying to hide her disappointment. We couldn't keep doing this. The food was gone. Our water was running low. I was injured, and no one, not park rangers, not passing hikers, not my so-called family, had come. That night, as Lily drifted into a fitful sleep beside me in the collapsing tent, I made a decision. Tomorrow, we go. I didn't know which way. I didn't know how far, but we had to try. By the fifth morning, the forest felt colder, still, almost watchful. Lily stirred beside me, her forehead creased. Her cheeks were flushed, and her skin, when I touched it, was alarmingly hot. "I don't feel good, Mom," she mumbled, voice hoarse. My stomach dropped. A fever. I didn't know if it was from the cold rain 2 days earlier, from the water we'd boiled over smoky fire, or something else entirely. But I knew one thing for certain. We had to get help. Fast. "It's okay, baby," I whispered, brushing damp hair from her brow. I gave her a small sip from our remaining water. "Just rest. I've got you." While she dozed in the tent, I stepped outside and limped around camp, assessing. My ankle hurt like hell, but could bear weight. The water bottles were half empty. The air had that heavy, electric feel that often came before a mountain storm. We were running out of time. We need to be seen. I grabbed a bundle of pine needles and green leaves, piling them over the still smoldering fire. It took coaxing, patience, and luck. But finally, a thick plume of white smoke began rising through the canopy. "Please," I whispered, watching it curl skyward. "Please, let someone see this." For hours, I fed that fire, smoke stinging my eyes and scratching my throat. I checked on Lily every few minutes. She was sweating, murmuring in her sleep, calling for Jace, asking if we could go home now. Her voice broke something inside me each time. I soaked my bandana in our precious water and placed it on her forehead, hoping to pull the heat down. It barely made a difference. Still, I kept tending the fire, kept watching the sky, kept praying. If no one came soon, I would have to make the impossible decision: carry my sick child out of the wilderness, or risk staying another day. Either way, the clock was running out. If you've held your breath this far, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because the moment that smoke hit the sky, everything changed. Just as I bent to add more pine needles to the fire, a rustling sound snapped my head around. 20 yards away, near the edge of the clearing, a shape emerged from the underbrush. A black bear. Smaller than I'd imagined, maybe a juvenile, but still powerful, easily large enough to maul or kill us. It paused, sniffing the air, eyes locking onto me with quiet curiosity. My heartbeat roared in my ears. I slowly stepped backward toward the tent, never breaking eye contact. I'd read about bear safety. Make yourself big, don't run, stay calm. But in that moment, all logic disappeared. "Lily," I whispered hoarsely as I reached the tent flap. "Sweetheart, wake up. We need to move." Quietly. She stirred, burning with fever, her eyes glassy. But when she saw the bear, something in her shifted. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She just clung to me and nodded. "We're going to back away slowly," I murmured, pointing toward the towering pine behind our camp. "We'll climb that tree, one step at a time." Limping through the clearing, I helped Lily walk while shielding her with my body. The bear watched, its expression unreadable, nose twitching as it took a few casual steps toward the tent. Reaching the pine, I boosted Lily to the lowest branch, ignoring the white-hot fire in my ankle. Then I scrambled up after her, biting back a cry of pain. "Keep climbing," I urged. Together, we reached a sturdy branch about 15 feet off the ground. From our perch, we watched helplessly as the bear wandered into our camp, snuffling through the ashes of our fire and knocking over the pot. It pawed at the torn tent, then shoved its snout into our backpacks. "Is it going to go away?" Lily whispered, trembling in my arms. "Yes," I lied softly. "Once it realizes there's no food." We waited. Minutes crawled into hours. The bear rummaged, shredded, and finally, as dusk painted the sky in purple streaks, it wandered off into the woods. But our camp was wrecked, our shelter destroyed, supplies scattered or torn open, and Lily, my brave, sweet Lily, was getting worse. She leaned heavily against me, fever making her skin clammy. I tied my belt around her waist, fastening her to the branch so she wouldn't fall. And then, as darkness fell and the air turned sharp with cold, I let go. Tears ran down my cheeks in silence. "Why?" I whispered to the wind curling through the pines. "Why would you do this to your own granddaughter?" Images flooded my mind. Dad's stern glare, Mom's tight-lipped judgment, Andrew's smug face. A lifetime of walking on eggshells, of being told I was selfish, dramatic, too emotional. A lifetime of conditional love, now culminating in this. "I hate you," I hissed under my breath. "I hate all of you." And in my head, Andrew's voice sneered. "You've always been weak, Claire. Always looking for the easy way out. But survival? This wasn't the easy way. This was war." The hallucination was so vivid, I almost turned my head, expecting to see Andrew standing in the shadows, smirking. But it was just my exhausted, sleep-deprived mind turning on me. Still, something about that imaginary sneer jolted a memory to life. On the drive up to the campsite, my father had mentioned something offhandedly while adjusting the GPS. "There's a ranger station down the main trail about a couple miles in, just in case." At the time, I'd barely registered it, too focused on Lily's laughter in the back seat and trying to hold on to some hope that this trip was meant for healing. But now, that detail could mean the difference between life and death. A ranger station. If it actually existed, and if we could find it, we might have a chance. That thought cut through my despair like a flare. I turned to Lily, still tethered to the tree with my belt, her forehead damp with fever. "Sweetheart," I whispered gently, brushing hair from her face. "The bear's gone. We have to get down now." She blinked at me, glassy-eyed and pale. "Where are we going?" "To find help," I said firmly. I remembered something about a ranger station. Getting down from the tree with a feverish 9-year-old and a throbbing ankle was agony. I slipped once and barked my shin, but we made it, inch by painful inch. What was left of our campsite was a shredded mess. Tent torn through, sleeping bags wet and ruined, food long gone. I salvaged what I could, the flashlight, Lily's compass, and a ripped section of the tent fabric that I knotted into a makeshift drag sling. Using 2 branches as crutches, we set off just as the last light vanished from the horizon. "Which way?" Lily asked, her voice barely audible. I closed my eyes, trying to picture the scene when we first arrived, the way the cars had faced, the curve of the trail. The road had to lie east. The ranger station had to be down that trail. "This way," I said, pointing east, double-checking with the compass. "Stay close to me." I used the flashlight sparingly. just enough to keep us from walking blindly into trees or tripping over rocks. Lily leaned heavily on me for a while, her feet dragging more with each step, and then she collapsed. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered. I can't walk anymore." "No apologies," I said softly. "Just rest." I laid her on the sling and began dragging her. Every inch of my body screamed in protest. My ankle burned, my shoulders ached, my throat felt like sandpaper. But I didn't stop. Couldn't. "You're the strongest person I know," Lily murmured weakly from behind me. But I didn't feel strong. I felt broken, hollowed out by fear, blazing with rage. Still, I pulled her through the dark forest, tree by tree, step by step. And as night closed around us, I made a vow in the silence. No matter what it takes, I will get my daughter out of this forest alive. If we survived this, when we survived this, my family would pay for what they had done. Not just to me, but to an innocent little girl whose only crime was being my daughter. That fury kept my legs moving, each step burning, each breath ragged. I couldn't afford to collapse, but eventually, I did. My flashlight beam dimmed to a soft flicker, batteries nearly gone, just like my strength. I don't remember when I gave in to the exhaustion, only that the last thing I saw before sleep claimed me was Lily's outline beside me, curled in the fabric sling. I woke to sunlight cutting through the pine canopy, soft and golden. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. My body was stiff with cold and pain, my ankle throbbing like a second heartbeat. Then I heard it. Lily's voice. "Mom?" I blinked over at her. She was sitting up, her eyes clearer than they'd been in days. "I feel better," she said, rubbing her arms. I scrambled toward her, ignoring my own pain, and pressed my palm to her forehead. The burning heat was fading, still warm, but no longer frighteningly high. "Your fever's breaking," I whispered, relief washing over me like sunlight after a storm. "That's really, really good." As I tried to stand, something caught my eye just beyond the clearing, a small wooden post with faded red paint. I hobbled toward it, a trail marker. "Lily!" I called, my voice cracking. "We found a real trail!" She gave me a tired but hopeful smile. "Does that mean we're saved?" "It means we're closer," I said, helping her up. "Can you walk a little today?" She nodded. "I think so." With renewed determination, we began following the path. Lily leaned on me, her steps slow but sure. I couldn't know if the trail led to the ranger station my father once mentioned, or just deeper into the forest. But it was something, and we needed something. As we walked, I kept glancing at Lily. Her color was returning. She even pointed out a bright red cardinal perched on a branch overhead. "It's pretty," she murmured. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. We had been walking for close to 2 hours, resting often, when Lily suddenly stopped and whispered, "Mom, I hear voices." I froze, heart hammering. For a moment, all I could hear was wind in the leaves. Then, faint but real, voices, human voices. "Hello?" I shouted, my voice cracking with dehydration. "Is someone there? We need help." Silence. Then, a pause, followed by a man's voice calling back. "Hello? Who's out there?" "Here!" I cried, tears rising. "We're here!" Branches snapped ahead. Then, through the trees, a figure in a dark green uniform emerged, a radio clipped to his vest, a park ranger. His eyes widened as he spotted us. My filthy clothes, Lily clinging to me, both of us looking half alive. "Oh my God!" he breathed. "Are you two okay?" "We are now," I rasped. "We're alive!" I shouted, waving my arms despite the pain screaming through my ankle. "We're here!" 2 figures appeared around the bend, a middle-aged man and a boy around 12. Both wore proper hiking gear, sturdy boots, and carried full backpacks. The man's expression shifted from curiosity to alarm as he took in our disheveled appearance, the dirt-streaked faces, the torn clothes, the way I clung to Lily. "My God," he muttered, hurrying forward. "Are you both all right?" "We've been lost for days," I said hoarsely, tears springing to my eyes. "My daughter has a fever, and I think my ankle's sprained. Do you have a phone? Can you call someone?" "No cell service out here," he said, crouching down. "But you're close, just about 2 miles from the ranger station. I'm Marcus, and this is my son, Jason." Jason was already pulling a water bottle from his side pocket. "Here," he said, handing it to Lily. "And I've got granola bars." "Thank you," I whispered, my voice breaking. As we sipped water and ate the food gratefully, Marcus explained that they were on a weekend hiking trip and had left from the ranger station that morning. "We'll get you there," he said, placing a reassuring hand on my arm. "The ranger can radio for help." Relief so overwhelming swept through me that I nearly collapsed again. "Thank you. I don't even know how to thank you." With Marcus supporting my weight and Jason walking carefully beside Lily, we began the trek down the trail. It was slow, every step agony, but help was close, and that was enough to keep me going. Marcus gently asked what had happened. I gave him the simplest version I could manage. It was a family camping trip. We got separated during a hike, got lost trying to find our way back. I wasn't ready to share the real story, the betrayal, the abandonment, not yet. When the ranger station came into view, a sturdy wood building with a tall antenna and a Forest Service truck parked out front, I nearly broke down. We had made it. Marcus and Jason helped lead us to the ranger station, where Ranger Collins took over our care. Ranger Patricia Collins, a woman in her 50s with weathered skin and sharp eyes, met us at the door. She took one look at us and didn't hesitate. She ushered us inside, offered clean water and protein bars, and quickly examined Lily. "She's dehydrated, but stable," she said. "And your ankle? That's more than just a sprain. I'm calling for med transport." She stepped to the radio, speaking in clipped, efficient tones. On the worn station couch, I cradled Lily against me, her head resting on my chest. "We made it, baby," I whispered into her tangled hair. "We're safe now." Within the hour, paramedics arrived in a rugged, all-terrain vehicle. They gave Lily fluids, cleaned our wounds, and prepped us for transport. As they secured us into the back, Ranger Collins stepped beside me, her expression firm but kind. "Ms. Thompson," she said quietly, "before you go, I need to ask, what really happened out there?" "You mentioned you were camping with family," Ranger Collins said carefully. "Should we be looking for other missing persons?" I looked her square in the eyes. "They're not missing." She blinked. "I'm sorry? They abandoned us." "Deliberately," I said, my voice steady. "My parents and my brother's family left Lily and me in the forest with minimal supplies. No car, no phone, nothing." Her expression shifted from concern to shock, then hardened with anger. "That's criminal endangerment," she said, her voice clipped. "Especially with a child involved. I'll be reporting this to the county sheriff." "Good," I said. "They need to face the consequences." At the hospital, Lily and I were treated for dehydration, exposure, and numerous minor injuries. My ankle was confirmed to be severely sprained and required a walking boot and crutches. Lily's fever was a result of stress, exhaustion, and a low-grade infection that responded quickly to antibiotics. But the wounds no doctor could see ran deeper. The story of what happened spread quickly. A local news station got wind of our survival and came to the hospital. At first, I declined to comment, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that silence would only protect the people who had hurt us. So I talked. I told the truth. Sheriff Keith Donovan, a gruff man with 27 years in law enforcement, sat across from me with a notepad and a recorder. "I've handled a lot of cases," he said after hearing everything. "But this is a first. You have my word. We're going to get justice." And he meant it. The investigation moved swiftly. Search warrants for my parents' and brother's homes uncovered everything. Emails outlining their so-called intervention, search histories for wilderness survival times, even a shared family calendar with one entry in bold red letters. Return to site, day 10. By that time, Lily and I had been moved to a small but comfortable hotel room paid for by a victim assistance fund. We were healing, slowly. My ankle still throbbed, and Lily still woke up crying sometimes. But we were safe. 10 days after the abandonment, the same day they were supposed to return, Sheriff Donovan called. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice gravelly over the phone. "They just arrived at the campsite. All of them. We're placing them under arrest now." Later that afternoon, I watched the local news from our hotel room. Lily curled up beside me. Footage showed my parents, Charles and Evelyn Thompson, along with Andrew and his wife Michelle, being led away in handcuffs. Their faces were a cocktail of disbelief, embarrassment, and fear. The reporter quoted my father's statement. "It was just supposed to be a lesson. We never meant to hurt anyone." But they had. And now, finally, they'd face the truth. A knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find Sheriff Donovan standing there, his face unreadable. "Miss Thompson," he said, "your parents are requesting to see you." "You don't have to say yes," Sheriff Donovan said gently. "It's your choice." I glanced back at Lily, who was finally sleeping peacefully for the first time since the nightmare began. Her cheeks had regained a hint of color, her breathing steady and soft. "Tell them I'll see them," I said quietly. "But not for their sake, for mine." The hospital room where the meeting was arranged felt colder than the forest had ever been. Sterile, distant, impersonal. Which, in a way, made sense. My relationship with my parents had been growing colder for years. Now, it was frozen. Charles and Evelyn Thompson sat side by side at the table, still wearing their camping gear, faces drawn and hollow. They looked smaller than I remembered, deflated, defeated. Andrew and Michelle were in another room. I wasn't ready to see them. Not yet. "Claire," my mother began, voice trembling, "we never meant—" "Stop," I cut in, my voice low but razor sharp. "You meant exactly what you did. You left your daughter and granddaughter in the wilderness with no car, no phone, barely enough food, because you couldn't control me." "That's not true," my father said quickly. "We left you supplies. We were coming back." "In 10 days, I snapped. "Lily had a fever. We were stalked by a bear. If we hadn't found help, we'd be dead right now. And it wouldn't have been a lesson. It would have been murder." The blood drained from my mother's face. "A bear?" she whispered. "Claire, we didn't know." "Of course you didn't know," I exploded. My composure cracked wide open. "You left. You walked away and didn't look back. What did you think was going to happen?" My father reached across the table, hand outstretched. I recoiled like he'd touched a nerve. "Don't," I said. "We thought you'd stay at the site," he said weakly. "We thought you'd be okay. We just wanted you to realize you can't do everything alone, that you need your family." I laughed, harsh and humorless. "You proved the opposite. We survived in spite of you, not because of you. And we'll keep surviving, thriving without you." "You can't mean that," my mother whispered. "We're your family." I stood slowly, my gaze steady. Number family doesn't do what you did. Family protects, loves, supports. You're not family. You're just people who share my DNA. And after today, you'll share nothing with me or Lily. Ever again. As I turned to go, my father's voice broke behind me. "We can change. We'll get help. Please, Claire." I paused at the door, not turning around. "You should get help," I said. "But not for me. For yourselves. Because what you did wasn't just wrong. It was monstrous." And with that, I walked away, toward the future Lily and I had earned. One step at a time. And I will never, ever forgive you for putting Lily through that hell. Walking away from that cold hospital room, I felt something release. A weight I'd carried for far too long, the burden of chasing love from people who never gave it freely, who saw me as someone to mold, not someone to support. Back at the hotel, Lily was awake, sitting cross-legged on the bed, drawing pictures of pine trees and mountain peaks in a new sketchbook donated by a local volunteer. "Did you see them?" she asked quietly. I sat beside her. "I did." "Are they sorry?" she asked without looking up. I thought about lying, softening the truth. But Lily had earned honesty. She deserved it. "They're sorry they got caught," I said gently. "Sorry there were consequences. But I don't think they understand what they did wrong." Lily nodded, her expression calm but thoughtful. "That's because they're broken inside." I blinked, startled by her clarity. "Grandma once told me that love means making people do what's best for them," she added. "Even if it hurts. But that's not right, is it?" I pulled her into my arms. "No, sweetheart. That's not love. Real love is helping people grow, even when they choose a different path. It's respect, trust, not control." We held each other for a long time. Two survivors, bruised by wilderness and betrayal, but unbroken. In that moment, I knew our move to Seattle wouldn't just be a change of address, it would be our rebirth. 6 months later, we sat in the back of a courtroom in Colorado. Lily, now stronger and more confident, held my hand as the judge read his decision. My parents, Charles and Evelyn, my brother, Andrew, my sister-in-law, Michelle, all found guilty. Child endangerment, reckless endangerment, and attempted involuntary manslaughter. The court cannot ignore the premeditated nature of these actions, the judge stated. To deliberately abandon a woman and child in remote wilderness with no way to communicate, limited supplies, and no protection from wildlife. This demonstrates a shocking disregard for human life. My father was sentenced to 5 years in prison. My mother and Andrew each received 3 years. Michelle, who had stood silently complicit, received 2 years, with parole eligibility after 1. More than that, permanent restraining orders were issued, legally prohibiting any of them from contacting Lily or me again. Outside, the courthouse steps buzzed with cameras and questions. Our story had made headlines across the country, sparked national debates about control, familial coercion, and the blurred lines between protection and punishment. A reporter called out, "Ms. Thompson, how do you feel about the verdict?" I paused. Lily's hand still nestled in mine. "Justice was served today," I said clearly. "But this was never about revenge. It was about protection, making sure my daughter and I can live without fear. And now, we finally can." Another reporter called out, "Do you have anything to say to your family?" "They're not my family anymore," I replied, steady and clear. "Family is about love and support, not control and manipulation. Lily and I have found our real family in each other, and in the community that lifted us up through this ordeal." That community had been nothing short of extraordinary. After our story broke nationwide, messages poured in from across the country. First responders who helped rescue us sent letters. Victim advocates guided us through the maze of legal hearings and press attention. Strangers we'd never met sent care packages, encouraging words, even small donations to help us rebuild our lives. 1 month after the trial, Lily and I finally made our long-awaited move to Seattle. We chose a quieter neighborhood than we'd originally planned for privacy and healing. The school that had once offered me a teaching position honored their commitment, welcoming me with empathy and grace. Their support reminded me that kindness still existed, even after all we had been through. Lily adjusted quickly, at least on the surface. She made new friends at school and took to painting forest scenes, many of them filled with warm light and hidden animals. But trauma has its quiet echoes. She developed a fear of the dark, grew nervous if I was gone too long. Nightmares about the forest returned some nights, pulling her from sleep in tears. We began working with Dr. Leah Winters, a trauma-focused therapist who saw us both individually and in shared sessions. Her presence was calm, grounding. "You're carrying guilt," she told me one day, watching me fidget with the corner of a tissue. "You believe you should have protected her from this." Tears came faster than I could stop them. "I should have seen it coming," I admitted. "I knew something felt off about the trip, but I didn't trust my instincts." "Claire," she said gently, "your family trained you to doubt those instincts, to seek their approval over your own intuition. Breaking that cycle is part of the healing." And over time, we did begin to heal. Lily's nightmares came less frequently. I learned to honor my own feelings, without minimizing them or silencing myself. Then, One evening at a community support group for survivors of family trauma, I stood and shared our story aloud. For the first time, I said the words. The hardest part wasn't surviving the wilderness. It was accepting that the people who should have loved us chose to hurt us. A woman in the front row nodded through tears. After the meeting, she approached me. "Thank you," she whispered. "I've spent years making excuses for my parents. Hearing your story helped me realize I'm not obligated to keep people in my life who keep hurting me." That moment sparked something. With encouragement from Dr. Winters and help from local advocates, I founded the Thompson Foundation for Family Trauma and Wilderness Safety, a space for education, prevention, and healing. Because no one should be left alone in the woods, literally or emotionally, by the people who claim to love them. The Thompson Foundation served dual purposes, providing resources for survivors of familial abuse and educating the public on wilderness safety. Through it, Lily and I found others who understood the unique pain of being betrayed by the very people meant to love and protect us. Slowly, a community formed around us, a chosen family, bound not by blood, but by mutual respect and resilience. On the first anniversary of our abandonment, Lily said something over breakfast that stopped me mid-sip of coffee. "I want to go camping, Mom. Real camping, the right way." I set down my mug. "Are you sure, sweetheart?" "We don't have to." She met my eyes with a steady gaze. "I don't want to be afraid of the forest forever, and I don't want to let them take that away from us, too." So we planned. Thoroughly. We chose a safe national park in the Cascades, hired an experienced guide, packed every necessary item, and went. Just the two of us and a woman named Karen, who had once survived her own family's betrayal in the Rockies. We pitched our tent together, lit a proper campfire, cooked a simple meal. That night, under the stars, I asked, "How do you feel?" Lily glanced up at the Milky Way, the reflection of starlight glinting in her eyes. "Proud," she said softly. "We're not just survivors anymore, Mom. We're explorers, too." From then on, we made that trip an annual tradition, a way to reclaim the wilderness as a place of empowerment, not fear. Over the years, life unfolded in ways I could never have imagined during those terrifying days. I was promoted to curriculum director at our district. Lily developed a love for environmental science and earned a scholarship to an advanced high school program. I published a book about our ordeal, and to my surprise, it reached thousands. People who'd lived in the shadow of family manipulation, who finally found the courage to step into the light. 5 years after our abandonment, Lily and I stood before a group of mothers and daughters at our foundation's annual Wilderness Safety Workshop. Now 15, she was poised, confident, and deeply kind. "The most important lesson I've learned," she told the audience, "is that no one, not your grandparents, not your past, not even fear, gets to decide who you are. You do." Later that night, we walked along Seattle's waterfront. The city lights shimmered over Elliott Bay. "Do you ever wonder about them?" Lily asked. "Grandma, Grandpa, Uncle Andrew?" I thought for a moment. "Sometimes. I wonder if they changed, if they ever truly understood what they did. But I don't miss them. I miss what family should have been." Lily smiled and linked her arm through mine. "It's okay. We built the kind of family we always deserved." "Yes," I whispered. "We did." And as we turned toward home, I realized that surviving wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning. And healing? That was the truest freedom of all. If you've stayed with me through this journey, I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments, not just for me, but for every parent, survivor, or soul searching for strength. What would you have done in my shoes? What lessons have you learned about trust, boundaries, and family? I read every message because they remind me I'm not alone. And neither are you. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this. Your peace is worth protecting, even if it means walking away from people who share your blood. You deserve safety. You deserve love.